Hello and welcome back to the podcast. My name is Jye Currie and I'm joined here today with Ryan Tate. Now, if you love animals, you're going to absolutely love today's episode. Ryan is a professional animal trainer. I just had the privilege of spending a little bit of time with him on a project that we're both currently working on. Mate, I must say, I've never seen anyone have control over an animal like I did watching you that day. I want to jump straight in, but before we do, I just want to thank you for coming down. Really,
thanks for having me.
Yeah, really appreciate you making the trip and keen to catch up with you.
Yeah, likewise.
How have you been?
Good, yeah. I've been all over the country since I saw you last. I've been to Perth twice, up to the Capricorn coast.
With the dogs?
Yeah, with dogs, and or visiting teams with dogs as well. And then to some zoos and aquariums as well, doing some stuff with sharks and penguins. And today I was working with a bunch of really unique circumstances and a guy that has pretty high profile Australian businessman who he wants a dog like Rafa, like mine that you met. You know, he wants that, for lack of a better term, like a personal protection dog. He's got a lot of assets. He moves around a lot, and for various reasons, he needs that kind of sixth sense of a dog. So today was it was awesome actually. I often meeting those kind of clients, I stress out about it because they're people, you know, in a upper echelon of wealth who expect a certain return on their investment. And this is one of those few cases where he has followed all the advice to a T. The dog's approaching maturity and she's just put all the pieces of the puzzle together. And so it's about, she's a big shepherd, big black shepherd. She's got to have that presence, but be in control. She can't just be running around nailing people, you know, and needs to have his back at all times.
So this isn't a work dog?
It is and it isn't. So it's his personal dog.
Yeah.
But I never ask what the motives are, and I've had a few of these clients that have found me out through different ways, but they want a dog that has that sixth sense to go, is someone that I trust about to knife me in the back, literally or figuratively. I might have high profile assets where I want a dog to patrol an area and just have some presence, or they might want the real deal that can, you know, really handle the business. So he wants a bit of both. So, and the dog's pretty much there, like super safe, super responsive, but has that sense and that, you know, that unspoken nature of a shepherd that you just don't want to fuck with it. You know, you see it and go, right, that dog's not baring its teeth. It's not going off at me, but the way it presents itself when I arrive at the property goes, yeah, I'm not gonna do anything dodgy. I'm not gonna try and steal something. I'm not gonna try and go into a room and plant a bug or anything like that. There's this dog that's just always watching me very calmly, and that's sick, man. That's just those calm, thoughtful animals. They're the ones that I go, yeah, they're the ones you don't fuck with. The one that's barking and spinning around is easy to fool.
That was mine. I had a German Shepherd. He was a big baby.
Yeah.
If you ran down, he'd just lay on his back and want big hugs. But so these people, are they getting you to come and train the dog, or are they getting you to train them to train the dog?
More so nowadays, I'm training the people.
Because like if you train the dog, is it hard to then
100%
pass it over?
Exactly right. Yeah. So, you know, those board and train style scenarios where people might take on a guard dog or a detection dog or whatever it may be, you can get it to a particular point, but if you really want the best results, you want to get it like pretty rough, like sort of halfway there and go, right, here's some foundational work. Now you kind of need to take that journey the next step, because what occurs is, and I got this from some mates in the army way back when, where they, you know, describe phenomenons of, what was it, the coppers maybe? I think they both use this. Anyway, they would train up a dog to 100% proficiency, right? The dog is amazing, does everything you could think of. It finds bad guys, takes them down, sniffs bombs, whatever it may be. And then they hand it over to a new recruit and go, here's your dog. Here's your manual, A, B, C, X, Y, Z, off you go. Well, the first time that dog tracks a bad guy and takes him down, the sort of handler goes, well, yeah, it should. That's its job. Whereas if they hand over a dog that's, say, 50, 60% and say, look, he's pretty good. You got to watch him around wallabies and, you know, he might try and grab a kid on a push bike and you got to work on this and you got to work on that. Well, the first time that handler then goes out and finds an old lady with dementia that's gone missing and the dog really finds it and he or she knows, I made that happen, I was part of that, then what happens is, and I feel this even talking about it, is that you get this sensation in your heart and in your soul where you're releasing endorphins and oxytocin and all this stuff's coming out. And you might say, yes, good boy, and play tug of war with him, but that's almost irrelevant now. That's where this 50, 60,000 years of evolution together, that's where it kicks in. When you feel it in your soul that you and me did something special together, that's when the dog and the handler soar to the moon. So does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Where you're part of it.
It makes sense, but it's also like very few people would ever experience that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You explain colour to a blind person.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I wish I could experience something like that.
Yeah. And I think, I was thinking before coming here today, what's my why, or why am I here? Why do I do what I do? And I think my role and my job and my only skill set I think I'm any good at is helping people create connections with animals, or at least trying to understand the dialogue that the animals are giving us and how we can respond back. And of course, 99% of it is non-verbal. And so it might start with, all right, I want you to look this way and move that leg that way, whether it be working with a shark or a tiger or an elephant or a dog. I can teach people the biomechanics, right? Move like this, speak like that, breathe like this. Mm-hmm. And you kind of get this outside-in approach. And as the people start to do those basics, then I start to, after a few weeks, sort of go, can you feel that here? Just stop for a moment and feel that when the dog does something right. And they can just scrape into it a little bit and they just sort of go, that does feel good. And I'm like, right, drop a knee, get down low, like feel this moment, breathe it in, smell the animal, feel what your heart's doing, think about your respiration. And then they can kind of start to unlock that, they peel back this sense that they didn't know that they had. And that's where they start to get this, all right, we're all one, without getting, we're not on a psilocybin trip here, but they get this oneness of like, okay, it's not all just about speaking commands and throwing fish or treats or whatever, that there is so much more to it. And it's all science back too. It's not, I'm not by any means, I would never identify as a fucking whisperer or anything like that.
I would call you on.
No, but it's fully science backed. Like it's all, you can, and that's kind of where I've gotten to in the last 10 years of my career is I can now back it all up with well, yeah, it's you move your left leg, you slow down your respiration, you look off to the right, you turn your shoulders, and that will create this response. You turn that way, you look down, you stop breathing, you stare at the animal, it'll create this response. And so you can become crazy objective about it if you need to, when you need to pass it over to someone and go, why does it work? It's not just because it feels good. It works. Yes, that's part of it, but it works because when your body language is doing this, every animal can sense that your intention is to not catch them or to intimidate them or whatever it might be, or you're not intimidated by them. We were writing this part in our book about smelling fear, and how, we know for a fact so many different species can smell fear and intention and agitation and unpredictable behaviour. Why certain people get bitten by sharks, why certain people get, targeted by magpies or whatever it may be. And there is a lot of those things that, it's very near impossible to completely extinguish from your repertoire. But if you can, if you're familiar with mindfulness or you're familiar with, trying to slow down your autonomic nervous system, you can apply that in animal training and kind of go, right, well, if my intentions are good and I hold my ground or whatever it may be, you can communicate with a wild animal very, very effectively.
You've got just such a wealth of knowledge and so much passion. When did you realise you had this want to go and do what you've done? For me personally, there's no definitive moment, but anyone that I speak to that knows me from a child said, you always said this is what you're going to do. Yeah. So I think I'm super lucky in the sense that as early as I can remember, this is all I ever wanted to do. And I, not
not only did I want to do it, but I happened to be kind of good at it too, right? And then so
you grew up with animals?
No, not really. So I grew up in the southwest of Sydney, humble sort of blue collar area. We had 1 or 2 dogs growing up that were kind of feral, single mum household. I used to keep bloody cicadas and caterpillars as pets in my room as a
Hang
young
them on your
kid.
shirt?
Yeah, exactly. And not really until I think my first time snorkeling. I think I put my head under the ocean. I probably have some. I know my daughter does, and I've got nephews and cousins who have sensory processing issues. And that's why I was saying before, when I put on headphones, I actually feel kind of calm. And I think the ocean does the same for me. So first time I put my head under the ocean with a mask on, no sound, just colours. My field of vision was narrowed, and I was just like, this is it. This is all I want to do. So the ocean was my first love.
Yeah.
And animals through the ocean from as early as I can remember. But then I started, as soon as I could, I started collecting birds and raising, injured birds, and then parrots. And I developed, I was an entrepreneur from day dot. I started training parrots for pet shops by the age of 12. And
really?
Yeah. And just kind of it all. It's just like saying yes to more and more things.
Yeah.
And got into uni and got into jobs at zoos, and then started doing trainer swaps with the police and then the army, and then, met Steve Austin, who you've met as well, and his wife, Vicky, who's a guru, and they both gave me mentorships, and I got to, work alongside them on different jobs, and then cops and corrective services, and it all just kind of evolved into this career where I've got a bunch of ridiculous niches, really, really small niches, but there's quite a few of them, but they do overlap a lot, and people go, how can you go from one morning training a shark and then that afternoon, training a narcotic detection dog? It's it's actually really, really similar. It's paying respect to the natural abilities of the animal and working with them, not trying to, force a round peg into a square hole. And I think that's kind of, it doesn't feel that broad to me, but I can understand from the outset it looks like I've got this really broad skill set. But for me, it's all just about trying to create a dialogue between a person and an animal and trying to understand them both as an individual. And in the last probably 10 years, what I've appreciated is that, I would probably consider myself an introvert, but I do love people, and I've got to know the people I'm working with on quite an intimate level to work out how do I help them understand the animal in front of them. And reading the animals for me is a piece of cake. It's then reading the person that I've got to go, okay, I've got to focus a little bit more. I probably find it a little bit more of a draining process, whereas with the animals you put me out in the bush with a couple of dogs by myself for a month and I'm doing just fine. But you put me in a room with a group of people and I love it, but I get to the end of the day, I'm like, oh man, that was draining. I kind of need to go back and recharge and reboot for it.
With, you say you look at all animals as animals, not as a dog and a shark and all this. Was there a moment, and I'll use learning another language for an example, where you know a few words and you string them together and you're not at all fluent. This is me for an example. I've been trying to learn Spanish, and last year I could get to the point where I could order, can I have a table to sit down? Yep, no worries.
Sure.
Can we have the menu? Can we have this? And then I'd always get to a wall where I was like, up until there, I don't know what's next.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm just on that repeat.
Yeah.
But then there was this moment where it just kept going and I wasn't thinking about it, and I was in this flow state and I'm like, I'm fucking talking Spanish. And it was this moment where it was just like all the words and bits of knowledge overlapped and it felt fluent. So I want to get back to you with the animal training. Was there a moment where you just went, I understand these animals?
Yeah.
I'm communicating with them now on this just different.
Yeah. There's a moment that it's seared into my mind. I don't think I'll ever forget it. I was working in a facility with a bunch of different seals, and there was a fur seal in there who was notoriously aggressive. Grabbed people by the leg and tried to hold them underwater, and 300 kilo big male fur seal. And he was an orphaned animal, every problem under the sun, developed into a big bull male, and difficult animals to work with at the best of times.
And this is at a zoo?
Yeah, in a zoo, yeah. And anyway, so for a while there, I kind of felt like I felt like I could understand him. And a lot of people, including my supervisor at that time, really struggled with him and had a few incidences where the animal would just be at him and at him and at him. And they would do this thing where we used to refer to as gating, right? So we'd have the animal out somewhere. We used to take them for walks around the zoos and, swims in different exhibits and ponds and stuff and really trying to give these animals the best life. And seals in particular, if they've got everything they want in a small bay, they won't leave that bay for the rest of their life. If they can shag, eat and sleep,
they're just happy there.
They're happy as Larry, right?
Really?
Penguins are much the same. There's a lot of species like that where migration and covering huge distances is not their MO. And so seals, particularly fur seals and some species of sea lion, do really well in zoos, particularly if they're from that area, they've been orphaned, they've been nailed by a shark or hit by a boat, they've only got one eye or whatever and they can't be released. Unreal. You can research the shit out of them. You can learn so much more about them in these settings than ever. And you can, the stuff we learn about how they think and how they work is amazing. So what happens is they learn that coming out and working with the people is awesome. We get to go explore. They teach them to jump in the car and go for a drive and get all these amazing experiences happening. But then when you go to take them home, they go, I don't want to go past the gate because the gate means the fun's over, right? And so we call it gating. So particularly what the males will do is on the way to the gate as you're approaching it, they might try and trip you over. Could look accidental, but it's very intentional. Or they'll walk in front of you and then lean back and just kind of flex a little bit and just kind of say, yeah, you're not walking in there because once you walk in there, then you want me to follow you and then the fun's over. And they just have this kind of initially kind of passive-aggressive approach, which inevitably escalates into something aggressive, right, where you get nailed. And the bites are horrific, teeth are super sharp, so you don't want to get nailed by them. But so he had a long history of doing that kind of behaviour to people and even trying to pin people in there with him and all sorts of really, and I watched some really experienced trainers get completely demoralised by this animal.
Really?
Because he'd outsmart them and he'd pin them in a corner and he would just hold them there for as long as he felt like it. There was nothing they could do to
They're on land, but they're not
on
in
the land.
pool.
Yeah, on the land. Yeah, but he did try and grab on a number of occasions, drag people and try and drag them underwater as well.
That's scary.
So yeah, super, super scary. And I didn't have any of those incidences with him. Mm-hmm. And for a long time, I just thought I was lucky. And I thought, yeah, he's going to smash me one day. And it's just my time will come. And I think it had maybe been a year or two of working with him. And it was taking him from one area outside, so into a free area, into the zoo where he could go wherever he wanted, into another area where we had some pens where I was training him for some voluntary blood work, so we'd collect bloods. And essentially, without trying to sound like a hero, I don't think anyone could do that process. They couldn't take him up there without it going completely pear-shaped. Mm-hmm. And then so one of my older former colleagues said, all right, well, I'm going to watch you do that because how you get him from there to there without getting smashed doesn't make sense. And then so I started walking up and he just moved his flipper that was closest to me just a little bit backwards as we were walking. And as soon as he did that, I took a step to the side and I said, "Oh, you good, mate?" And then I waited for him to take a breath and I asked him to move this way and then I stepped forward and then got through it all and then, he stopped with an eyeball and I praised him up and said, "Thank you." And what I realised at the end of it was every time he slowed down or every time he eyeballed me, I was interpreting that as language that and I was never cognizant, never cognitively doing that before until that moment when she said, "You tell me what it is that you're breaking down." And every time he rotated that flipper backwards a little bit, I knew he was positioning himself to potentially pin me.
To turn and have
a crack at me. And then every time he would eyeball me or take a breath, and instead of just trying to micromanage it, I'll just go, "Okay, man, thank you. I understand how you're feeling," and I'd give him a little bit of space, take a breather, have a bounce, move on, And so I noticed that I was initially subconsciously spotting really subtle, and I mean moving his flipper that
Yeah,
much,
wow.
not waiting until he's leaning into me. And I think that's really the key for a lot of the learning with animals is not waiting until they do the thing or not responding when the shark's charging you. You're fucked then, right? So, or the croc or whatever it may be. You've got to spot that moment when that croc's foot just rotates a little bit.
And you take that as communication.
100%.
All these micro
it's all
movements.
deliberate. It's language. It's
So I never would have thought animals were that intentional.
Oh, very much so.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and that's the language. And if you respond accordingly to those subtle things, they don't need to respond with these overt displays of frustration. Mate, every dog attack video, you could jump on YouTube and look up dog attacks. Chihuahua bites kid and there's heaps of ones with dachshunds and stuff like that, and German shepherds cuddling babies and whatnot. I could tell you, and most dog trainers could too, half a dozen things that animal is doing with its eyeball, its lip, its tongue, its mouth, let alone its paws, its hair on its back, that are all saying something. They might all be saying the same thing, or there might be a mixed message. And it's the same with snakes, with all reptiles, with all fish, with all mammals, with all primates, birds. I'm not that far down the rabbit hole with insects, but I'm getting there. And they all
Really?
Yeah, for sure. It's all very, very deliberate and intentional.
What are you doing with insects?
Well, so I'm working on a program with some invasive ants at the moment, and we're learning.
Just reefer?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so we're and yellow crazy ant as well. So we're learning about their behavior, and one of there's all these other ant species now we're finding that look so similar. Like, to the naked eye, you can't tell them apart. And I even found some nearby the other day. I was like, fuck, that looks like reefer. And I'm taking photos and sending them to experts and thinking, that photo's not quite good enough, mate. But what you can do is you get a bit of a sense for their behavior. And then so we often say, it's not acting like reefer though. And so then you want to go, what does that mean, right? So how do you break that down? It's they walk like this, but when you approach the nest, they do this, as opposed to doing that and retreating. So yeah, it's trying to, I suppose, we're probably very ignorantly or arrogantly, we're only forming a language based upon what they do in response to us. But, if I can, I love to sit back and watch what they do without any human presence too, and just try and read what all those things mean and the way the colony works together and how they forage and interact with other ant species and sunlight changing and clouds and different weather and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's...
So when you say like you're watching them and you're like, oh, they aren't acting like reefer, are you saying like they're not building a big thing or working as one, or then individually they're not moving like one?
Both, yeah. So individually, how they move, what speed they move at, how they greet other ants when they meet each other on their trails, what speed they're moving at, whether they're moving with intention or not. So like the yellow crazy ant, which I don't know almost anything about it except for the fact that I'm about to be included on a big job looking for them, and a good mate of mine, he's a guru in that space, and he's saying like they get that name crazy because if you watch their movement patterns, they seem to have no sense to the way they move compared to other ants. So it's like, they're just running around fucking crazy. But obviously there's in nature, there's a reason for it, right? So trying to decipher what that means I find that super fascinating.
Is that what the project is?
I know the project is actually looking for it on some sacred land in an area where they shouldn't be. So we'll be actually taking up new dogs into that area, trying to deploy them and, make sure that they, if there is any yellow crazy ant up there, that the dogs are very, very tuned into finding even one single ant in some pretty harsh protected country.
So reefer is red imported fire ant.
That's correct, yeah.
And what's it doing to the ecosystem?
Mate, it's fucking horrendous. Like, for me, when you go into the zones where it exists, like, and you know what the environment should look like and you see what they're like when they're in there, it's terrifying. And it really should be treated in those areas around Brisbane, Sunshine Coast, Goldie, Northern Rivers, it should be treated as it's worse than COVID. It's worse than a bushfire.
Really?
Oh, mate, it's
Like
they'll
what?
kill people. They'll kill pets. They'll
People?
kill kids. 100%, mate.
From poison or?
Yeah. So the main way that people die is that it's typically elderly and small kids. You won't know necessarily when you've disturbed the nest, and I've been nailed by them before. Not in big numbers, but you'll lean on a nest. You'll sit on a nest. You'll be having a picnic, cooking a barbie barefoot or whatever, and what they do is they're so clever is they'll all say, all right, everyone, let's see how many we can get on this big prick before he realises. And so they'll swarm.
But then they're not biting.
Nope. Very, very quietly.
Wow.
And then at the same moment, what they do is and the reason I love ants, and I'm sort of nerding out on that, is they communicate with smell. So, I know a lot about olfaction and how our nose works and dogs' noses work and how things sublimate and evaporate and how we interpret all that, and that's how ants perceive the world. So what they'll do is they'll swarm you very quietly and very calmly, and then go, now's go time, guys, and release an odor into the environment which says attack, and then everyone at the exact same time bites, turns into a C, and injects you with their venom at the same time, and then you get this overwhelming response of poison into your system.
Imagine waking up with like 1,000 ants biting you at once.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then so about one of the studies done in probably Texas, something like 3% of people go into anaphylactic shock when they get a significant sting event. So that's a pretty that's pretty high numbers, right? So
and what are they doing to the bush? Like eating leaves and killing trees, or
all the above, yeah, and other animals. And I mean, it's pretty gnarly when you said they'll nail and consume cane toads and stuff like that, like things that you would think no one's fucking with a cane toad. These guys, no worries.
Really?
Yeah. And some of the paddocks where they've taken over, and it hasn't been monitored for say a year properly, you can't go a meter without finding a mound. Like they will nail anything.
Are they big?
No. So they're about 4 distinct sizes, and so from 1.5 mil up to about 5.5 mil.
Yeah, right.
So not a big ant, and to be honest, the sting isn't that painful. It's the overwhelming effect that 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 have on you at once.
What are the big ones? The big ants?
Within the colony?
No, like just the big ones.
In general?
Yeah. I remember like I grew up in Warners Bay, like we grew up on like a little acreage.
Yeah.
There was always these like maybe that big.
Yeah, there's like a big bull ant down here and jumping jacks and things like that as well.
They're fine.
I mean, yeah, they're natives, so yeah, that they fucking like their bites are gnarly.
I remember. I'm not getting bit. I've got like a scar.
Yeah, they're heaps worse. Yeah, but they all they've got natural predators that sort of balance them out, and like the fire ants are just so incredibly aggressive, and that where they've evolved from originally, there's even gnarlier species that would sort of flatten them out a little bit. So whereas here, there's nothing quite.
So they're just taking over.
Yeah, mate. They're just.
Where are they from?
So I hope I don't butcher this one up, but I'm sure it's a part in South America where I think they overlap with like the bullet ant and some of the other ants that are considered, most deadly, most gnarly ants in the world. And so they've got some serious competitors there and some probably more insectivorous birds and things like that. Mm-hmm. So, and the biggest problem with fire ant in Australia is that it got here in 2000 and something, we think. And, the Australian government sort of, I guess, sort of undercooked the program a little bit with how they tried to manage it without sort of, trying to go too hard on them because I wasn't there. But anyway, so it's grown, right? So the idea was they wanted to eradicate them, and they did eradicate them on the West Coast, which was awesome. So it got into a port around Perth, and they eradicated it there.
Got rid of all of them.
All of them gone, totally gone, which is amazing.
Solid effort.
Yeah, amazing work, right? And they have locally eradicated them in other areas. But Brisbane and the outskirts of Brisbane, there's so many landholders, and the problem is so extensive that it's it's a really difficult logistical problem to deal with when you're saying to people, hey, we need access to your land to treat them. Now, we're also in an age now where I believe more than ever, there's a huge distrust in the government, particularly state government agencies.
Yeah.
And so, with the flow on of COVID and nanny state type things that are happening, people are now going, fuck off, you're not coming on my land. We want to come in and treat fire ants, and people are going, no, I don't trust the government anymore. And so they're making it as difficult as possible. And so, and people are probably buying into what I can 100% say are conspiracy theories of saying, the ants aren't that bad, or they don't exist, or they're not a problem, or whatever. The poisons are going to sterilize our kids and stuff like that. I've done it deep enough dive and all that sort of stuff. This is one of those cases where I wish people just would trust our government, because it's been the same people, the same scientists, the same dedicated researchers that I've met that have been doing nothing but this for like 20 years. And all they want to do is get rid of these ants so they're not killing people, they're not wiping out native animals. But it's a communications disaster. It's really hard work.
So if they don't eradicate it in, I don't know, down the track, what can it look like?
Well, 95% of Australia is theoretical habitat. And so you could be looking at a situation where, outdoor barbies in Havianas are a thing of the past, where there'll be 100% there'll be species that will go extinct. Parklands will be closed. Like some of your pristine areas, that like the areas that are really like super under the pump right now. You think Burleigh Headland National Park, Coolangatta, the surfing reserves through there, Byron Bay, the Pass, to the north, Noosa, all those like key, pristine, gorgeous coastal spots, like it's knocking on their door. It's literally right there. And if it takes off there, mate, all your people, good-looking men and women sunbaking out there, that will be a thing of the past, mate.
Really?
Mate, you just wouldn't do it. There's no way in hell you could convince me to go and sunbake somewhere where there's reef anywhere nearby. You wouldn't do it.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, and obviously everything to the west too. All the beautiful national parks to the west and the southwest, all the farmland. The farmers in the northern rivers are freaking out, as they should be. So, yeah, massive problem. I'm definitely not the right spokesperson to dive into all the details, but I know enough about it to know that the people in the National Fire Ant Eradication Program, their heart's in the right place. They do have the data. They do have the science on their side. They're consulting with experts from all around the world. The people in New South Wales working on it, people in private industry like myself and the dog units and stuff, they are all working together to really serve a common goal. And I think, it would be one of those ones where I would like to see the community get behind it and not think that this is some, horrendous government just throwing poisons out of helicopters and stuff that are going to sterilise our kids or, ruin our water supplies. It's not at all what's happening. Even though there is things happening from helicopters, but they're not throwing poisons from helicopters. It's just, it's a really difficult communications piece.
It seems pretty complex.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Back to animals. How'd the octopus go? Are you going over there?
Yeah. So, are
you allowed to talk about it?
Yeah. No, I can definitely talk about Ockie. So, there's some in Sydney that I'm training, and then, I was consulting on some stuff over in Europe with, we wrote some training plans on how to get octopus to present two tentacles out of the water for...
It's so specific.
Yeah, super, super specific. And, it's interesting. Who was I listening to? Theo Von and Huberman they were talking about octopus on Theo's podcast just a couple of days ago, and they're the real buzz species at the moment because of My Octopus Teacher, the Netflix series, and in the animal training world and in the animal research world, and interestingly even like in fisheries and whatnot, all animals that live in that group, so what we call the cephalopods, so the cuttlefish, the squid, and the octopus, they all have what we call honorary vertebrate status. So if you're going to do any research on them, if you're going to, consume them or anything, they need to be treated as well as a vertebrate, so a living animal with a spine, right? Whereas anything else that doesn't have a spine, it's like, well, fuck, do whatever you want. You can cook, you can eat live crickets, you can eat live mealworms, or, you know.
So that's how they, like, that's the line.
Yeah, I know.
Really?
It's pretty barbaric, yeah. But
If it's got a spine or not?
Yeah. If it's got a spine, we've got to show some ethics. If it doesn't have a spine, unless it's a cephalopod, you can, you know.
I never knew that.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, it was not that long ago that people were saying fish didn't have the ability to process pain either. And it's like, oh, come on, bullshit. What species would evolve without the ability to process pain? It doesn't make any sense.
So is it because if you've got a spine, they're saying it's going to have pain receptors?
More or less, yeah. I mean, that is my super rudimentary understanding of it. That's, vertebrates is where we draw the line. Got a spine, we'll show some dignity before we eat you, or, you know, use you for an experiment, or go through an animal ethics committee to get, you know, a group of impartial experts and people from the field to assess whether what you intend to do with that vertebrate is deemed ethical or not.
So octopus don't have spines,
Nope.
But they're the
honorary vertebrate.
Okay.
Yeah, and so their forms of communication, their ability to process time and value for reinforcement, to be random in their behavior. They have all these characteristics where, like, a lot of other species will have some of those characteristics, but nothing has all of them. So the way that they can teach other cephalopods things, the way they can change colour to their environment, the way they'll mimic divers, like, it's just...
What's the go with their DNA? Have you heard this? Their DNA is not from here or something?
Yeah, that I've got to do a deep dive into. So, I mean, behaviour...
Couple of 3 a.m.
scrolling. I know. You know, behaviour is more my kind of area where I feel like I know a little bit. But yeah, DNA and evolution, I know nothing. But
do they have a brain for each tentacle? Is this true?
shit, I've not heard that one before, but
I'm just watching absolute garbage online.
Yeah, but if you ask me to point to where their brain is, I would probably struggle, because so cephalopod literally translates to head and foot, or brain and foot. So, like, since people have been recognizing these species, they just say it's a brain and feet. That's what it is, right? Mm-hmm. So, I guess there's, I could understand why people would say there's a brain or a brain-like structure, and I think at the end of the day, we probably still there'd be so much about them that if we look back on what I'm saying now in 20 years, it would probably be laughable. There's so much about them that we don't know, and how they communicate and why they live such short lives as well. Like 3 years is average lifespan, even for a big ockie. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And they acquire so much knowledge in that time.
Do they move?
Yeah, they'll move. Or they'll live in family groups sometimes.
Like when I say move, like proper migrate?
I mean, the squid definitely would. There's so many different species as well.
Because in that my octopus teacher, he kept going back to that same spot. It was hanging around. Yeah. And I thought to myself, like, that's so convenient for filming.
Yeah. I mean, there's certainly spots on the East Coast where I could take you to and go, guarantee you're going to get this species or this species in around here, with like giant cuttlefish, smaller cuttlefish, and certain ockies that will be there kind of more or less year round. Mm-hmm. But there would have to be species that are much more like migratory or pelagic, or whatever you want to call it, where they sort of move out into the open ocean and utilize different ecosystems and whatnot.
So when someone calls you up and say, we're going to get you to come train an octopus to hold 2 tentacles out of the water, which is just, I would not even know where to start. Yeah. Are you just, once again, going in treating like it's an animal, not an octopus, and just going off behaviour? Yes.
Almost always my first port of call is I give the trainer or the keeper or whoever it is a basic set of instructions of how I want them to assess what it likes. And so I give them a whole host of different instructions where I do like what we call like reinforcement tests, or food preference tests, or texture tests, toy tests, things like that, where I say over the next couple of days at different times of day, on different days of the week, I want you to try offering all these things. And with you standing there, with you away, and by that we're working out, does the animal want you to move away? Because sometimes us backing off is better than any piece of food in the world.
wow.
And so I give them a whole heap of things. I say, just try all this shit and expect no results.
Yeah.
Just collect data.
Yeah.
You just tell me, because they go, oh yeah, octopus loves shrimp. I'm like, yeah, fuck. Well, if that's all you offer them, then sure, you're going to say they love shrimp, right?
Yeah.
Like the last 10 octopus you've had, well, they all love shrimp. I'm like, yeah, okay, I get they probably do, but that doesn't mean that this one won't like mussels more or a certain type of fish more. So I want you to go in and treat it as an individual and find out what it likes, find out what makes it tick, find out what settings it likes the light on, what temperature it wants the water at, where it likes the water flow at, and let's work out all these things that it likes so we have a really clear profile of, right, how can we start to build some kind of rapport and then watch them.
And then do you work like with the dogs in the same way, like reward base?
Very much so, yeah. And I mean, that is certainly would be what I'm in my sort of career, very much reward based, where I have, had people that come from a real, what we would call yank and crank kind of background who do
The
everything.
check chains and stuff?
Yeah, everything via compulsion, who would then reach out to me and go, I kind of like the way you do business. I'd like to do it more your style. Would you consider coming in and mentoring me and my team and bringing us into a slightly more new age approach? And I'm not, as well, like I'm not a hard taskmaster with that, because there are certain people that train like I do that, they're almost like that sort of religious or hardcore, like left wing kind of thing, where it's like, if you've ever corrected a dog or used a prong collar or a check chain, you're the devil and I could never talk to you and I could never work with your facility. Whereas I'm much more of the, you want to help, you want to evolve, you want to improve welfare, fucking sign me up. Absolutely, I'll come in and help you guys and bring them on a journey, and they become the best advocates for utilizing food and treats and love and having some fun with their dogs or their sharks, whatever it may be, giraffes, there's horses, mate, so many species where people just for millennia have just only responded with force. And once you show them, there is another way. I'm not saying it's the only way. I'm not saying you have to use it 24/7. I know sometimes shit hits the fan. Like a classic case would be, right, so, people might say, you're a reward-based trainer. For sure, I'm a reward-based trainer. Are you purely reward-based? No, I'm not. Why not? It's like, well, because sometimes I'll go to a pound or I'll be offered a dog, and this happens all the time, and I don't celebrate which dogs of mine are rescue dogs and which ones we've purchased and whatnot, because I don't want to create some sort of moral thing where people often feel this need, like, oh, I've only got rescue dogs and I only use rewards. And it's like, sometimes when I go and get these rescue dogs, they're fucking terrified to see me and they don't want to get in my ute, and I need to get him out of the pound. I need to get him in the ute. I'm not going to stand there all day trying to get to know that dog. I'm going to go in with a slip lead. I'm going to catch him while he's cowering in the corner. I go, sorry, buddy, mate. I'm going to try and make this as swift as possible. I'm going to catch you. I'm going to pick you up in my arms, tell you're a good little boy, and just force you into the car. And yep, you're going to carry on. You're probably going to piss and shit yourself. But mate, when you get to the other side, your life starts tomorrow. And then we're going to build it from the ground up. I can't lure them out of a pound with treats. I can't spend 3 days in there, because the dog's going to get the green dream. It's going to be dead. So there is time for it. There's time to use force and use it quickly and swiftly and ethically. But yeah, mate, I love working with play, with love, with treats, and being really clear with my dialogue.
With that scenario, like getting a dog from the pound,
Yep.
the old saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. If you've got just this old dog that is gone through just like 5 homes and fucking no one can just tame it, it's either a Fruit Loop or it's dangerous, or can you, and it's older in life, it's not a young dog, can you turn that around?
Short answer is yes, you can, but there is always going to be an element of you can't forget where it came from, right? So like I've worked with people who they've had dogs that have killed chooks or kangaroos or snakes, and you can put a whole lot of effort into it and you can get it to a safe level, but it's never going to be like, dogs that you've met, shooting this pilot where none of them are just going to come in and tune you up or just going to run off and nail a kid. Those kind of dogs that have done multiple attacks on different species, you got to remember that dog's kind of crossed a bit of a threshold. The same would be as well dogs that have done a lot of live bites, like skin bites on people, whether it be trained intentionally or not. Again, that you would always have to have in the back in your head. Like you could probably turn that into a pretty good, reliable dog, and if you read it and manage it effectively, sure, live a long, happy life without killing anyone. But, you start taking the piss and taking it to cafes or kids are running around screaming and carrying on, someone's going to get tuned up.
Have you trained any big cats?
Yep, yeah, for sure.
So if you're going to go, I'm going to ask 2 questions, but if you're going to go out in Africa and just see a lion that's been there the whole life, 1, can you train that? And 2, I'm guessing it's going to be easier to train a cub that's only ever been in a controlled environment.
Yep.
Now, if you train that cub and that grows up and then you put it out in the wild, come back 15 years later, do you trust that or do you go, nah, it's
not a chance.
It's one of the
100%.
wild ones again.
Yeah, and it's funny. I've been asked to help, and you've got to sort of tread lightly because I'm definitely by no means a big cat expert, but I understand behavior really, really well. And, sometimes when I go to these places where they've got lots of big cats and they're people that have, been with them for 10, 15 years, their interpretation of their behavior, it's flat out wrong. Like, it's not like, oh, he's kind of got it there. It's like, I can go in and go, you're completely misreading this.
Really?
Yeah, because
in what way?
Well, this is the big word we use is anthropomorphism, right? Is where you're attributing human or human-like emotions to a non-human entity, and so you're
what's the word?
Anthropomorphic.
Okay.
Right. So, like anthropology is the study of humans. Anthropomorphic, right? So you're morphing that human emotion onto an animal, and so they'll go. They'll label animals. He's a bitch, or she's a bitch, or he's in a fucking bad mood today, and he hates Jeff, and they come up with all these things, or he loves me, and it's like, right? Some of those things may be true, but if you can't objectively explain to me why, then I'm gonna try and chuck your explanation out the window. Like she's just in a bad mood. That's why she won't do that today, and then. I try and explain to them like the consequences of, well, if you carry yourself in a way that this animal's a bitch and she's always in a bad mood, and then if she doesn't learn this, we can't release her back into the wild. And so you're already walking in there kicking stones. Your body language tells a story before you go in there. And then you go around the corner to Caleb, the lion or the cheetah that everyone loves. You go, he's amazing. He's been the best. You're going to love him. He's going to do so well. Chest up, head held high, body language loose, the treats are slinging free. You've dictated their paths based on using human emotion. Whereas if you go into it much, much more objectively, you go, oh, what are the parameters? Well, every 10 seconds he tries to nail someone. Okay, right, we can work on that, right? So maybe we need to make our gaps in our sessions, like every 9 seconds, give him a breather, or, he runs over and swipes at the fence when the car approaches. Like, oh, fucking park the car 20 meters further away. Like, give him space, like trying to break down all those things,
So it's when they're coming in, projecting their perception on this animal, it will dictate that animal's behaviors and emotions.
Yeah, well, and dictate your success on what you're going to achieve, right? Because you're kind of setting it up one way or another, and it just doesn't serve you well. And I think this is where, my animal training and seeing this stuff through and coming in cold into environments where people have worked with an animal for a really long time and gone, he's not capable of this, and these turtles are so dumb, you won't train them anything, and just going, just humour me. Try these 3 things for like a week and let me know how it goes. And we got a little bit of progress. Let's go for another week, man. Let me see what happens. That when you just focus on the objectives and stop like putting your shit into it, that's when you actually see what's capable. And it's the same with like my interactions with the people. As the amount of times I get called into an organisation and I get to sit down with the people, whether it be at a rehab facility or a zoo or a research facility or whatever, and I go in there and there might be 2 or 3 young guys or girls that have heard of me before. They're leaning forward, eager, great, and then a couple of old sea dogs sitting in the back, arms folded, already kind of on the defensive. And then I have to go, okay, don't buy into that, right? Because yes, their behavior is telling me they're interested, they're not, but I've got to treat them all as individuals, and I can only go on what they objectively do or say. So then I go into it and go, fucking Ryan, leave that shit. Like in this very moment, my instinct is, hey, he's a fuckwit, that guy at the back, like fuck him, and then, but I tell myself, no, treat them. They're all individual animals, right? Let's go on what we have objectively. And so I deliver my information with nothing but respect and facts and really small goals about, hey, this is what I'd like you to achieve. I'm open to discussion. If something doesn't work for you or your facility, tell me why. And there's lots of different ways to do it. There's no one way or the highway, and we go through all that. The amount of times, my wife says this to me all the time, the amount of times I've nearly told someone to go fuck themselves, but held back, and then like a day later or a week later I get an email or a message from them going, man, I didn't quite know how to take you, or I wasn't quite sure of the information, but I just want you to know I had the best day. This has changed my life. Like, this has changed the way I do work. And so it reinforces to me, it's like if you just go off the objectives, right, of what the objective behavior of what that person is saying or doing, and then tell them to do the same for their animal, then we're much more likely to get results, instead of assuming that because someone has their arms folded or because they're looking away or because they've got glasses on that they're not in, they're not engrossed. And the amount of times I've thought people have been rude, and then later I found out they're like got crazy anxiety issues, or they're so far down the spectrum that they find eye contact really confronting, and so it's made me kind of check my shit even more, that I go, yeah, we definitely need to treat each other as individuals and just work on what we're seeing objectively with the human and with the animal.
You're a very optimistic person. I'm getting this sense from just you're going to go into any animal and just with this openness, willing to just give it a crack, even if it seems doomed. Yeah,
for sure.
And I was thinking about this 2 days ago when we were filming, and you said you got to the spot you're in now just because you just kept saying yes to everything.
Yeah.
Is there a spot where you've just gone into an animal and went, yep, I'm going to train this animal, said yes to it, and you're just not getting the results you want, and you're just like, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah, for sure. And it's been because of time pressures. That's usually been it, I think. It's the... Yeah, I mean, and maybe with some phobias, I suppose, as well. So time pressures and phobias.
Your own phobia?
No, the animal's phobias. Okay. So, if I get a mature animal, specifically, there's a couple of cases I can think of with dogs in particular, intense storm phobias, really, really difficult to work with.
And are you trying to work that out of them, or just work with in general?
Both, right? So, in a nutshell, though, there is so much about storms and about how the way animals perceive the storms and sense them when they're coming that we don't know. That when you're trying to convince them that it's okay, how can you do that when they're sensing it before the Bureau of Meteorology are?
Yeah.
It's very, very difficult to work with, So they're building up a narrative in their head that this is going to be fucking terrible, this is going to be fucking terrible, and you're trying to help them chill out. So... yeah, I've definitely never cured storm phobia, but what I'm really good at doing is helping people create safe spaces for their animals and create safe protocols. So what we do is then we work on conditioning a smell that is associated with relaxation, and I look ahead and go, right, for the next 7 days we've got no storms coming, definitely. So we're going to work on some smells, some sounds, a safe space, some massage, some other activities that make them feel really good, and work in a safe space and build up their little zone. They go into this zone, they're just zen, And so we do these activities before the safe space. We never do these activities before the safe space. Then we go in there and we put on some lavender and we play some Barry White. Reggae and classic actually is really soothing for a lot of animals. And put a fan on, get some comfy beds out, and just think the ultimate chill out space where you just think, oh man, if I was hungover or whatever and I wanted to just curl up in a space, that's what I create for the animal.
Yeah.
And then we make this so lovely that by the time a storm hits, you take the animal back in there and they can deal with it. Instead of self-mutilating, instead of trying to run, smash themselves through a window, they're like, okay, I fucking hate storms, but thank God I got my little cozy, nook that I chill out in.
When I had been German Shepherd, he was a puppy. He'd carry on all night. I'd turn classical music on, leave it on all night, and he'd be fine.
Yeah,
and everyone was like, "You're fucking full of shit."
No, you're not.
There's something in it.
Yeah, totally, and it's been researched. So
is it like the frequency? Is it like a?
I don't know, to be honest with you, but there is 100%. There's data. I could find you a paper on it for sure. Where classical music, we use it at my place all the time. When we're bringing new dogs in, it's classical or reggae type stuff, and I think there's certain beats and melodies, and whether it mimics the sounds similar to the sounds they hear in the womb or whatever it may be. There's so much stuff about frequencies and sounds that we're only just tapping into now. And like, I don't know if you've ever meditated to binaural beats and stuff. You listen to them at first and you go, this sounds stupid, and then suddenly you're like, oh my God, I feel amazing just by hearing this humming sound. So I'm sure, again, another area where in 20 years we'll probably understand why classical music helps dogs, but it does.
Well, look, what do you think for you personally understanding these animals have done with you understanding other humans? Because just watching you just communicate and walk around your property, and you've just got this other layer of communicating. And I don't know if it's like a sense of self-confidence. You seem very, very grounded. But I just feel like the way you communicate and talk and engage with people is it's really nice to watch.
Thank you. I think my wife's taught me a lot about that. Before meeting Jen, I think I was probably much more arrogant and like maybe a little too cocky, because I was still getting a lot of good results in the industry, and I think I was generally still pretty likable, but probably a little bit of a streak of arrogance. And then maybe, just some failures and probably people like me being inspired by other people and the team I've got around me. Like, I couldn't do any of what I do without my team. I've got an amazing team of trainers that work for me and contractors that I engage for things where I need that expertise, advice. And so I know I'm surrounded by gurus. And so if my intentions are like pure for the project, and I know my goal is to kind of, I put the right people in the right places really. I'm just kind of, I do the rosters basically, and I'm just sort of saying, well, this guy and this guy and this girl and these dogs, they'll work together well. And if I communicate effectively what the goals are, then they know I'm not bossy. I'm not a dictator at work or anything like that. I want people to speak up and raise concerns about safety or dogs or animal welfare and all that sort of stuff. So I think if my intentions are actually, they're legit and I'm not puffing my chest or letting any ego interrupt, then I should speak freely, I think. And I'm not sure how that's developed or why, but I think my wife's had a lot to do with it, I think, because we have very, very different skill sets, very different interests and passions and stuff. A lot overlap, but I think she just taught me to pull my head in a little bit and maybe listen, or I don't know what it is, but yeah, it's definitely, there's before Jen and after Jen, and I think that I'm a better person now. I think there's certainly people I wish I could go back to that I worked with in previous lives and gone, yeah, I was too cocky or whatever, and I've learned. We all learn, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think about stuff much? Like, do you have any regrets?
Not many. There'd be a couple where I go, fuck, I was a dickhead that day, but not many. And I think as well, I think anything that I've needed to like quash with people, I have done, like the ones that have been severe enough, I've needed to pick up the phone and be like, hey man, that didn't sit right. I think I've done all that. So therefore, like where I am now, couldn't be happier with the people I've got around me, the projects we're involved in, where we live, what we get to do. I think all those mistakes led to this, right? So if I regret any of those, then maybe I wouldn't be where I am now, and I love where I am now.
Do you do a lot of intentional development still, self-work? Like, do you meditate, stretch, exercise, try to read, try to keep learning?
Yeah, very, very much so. 3.5, 4 years ago, I had a bit of an incident with a bit of a brain fart with like some predispositions to things that happened as a kid, and I won't bore you with the sob story, but I thought I was going to die. I had brain surgery on Christmas Eve, and shit went really south, and I had some horrendous conditions, sort of 24/7 for a really long time, and it just kind of made me really just go back and go, righto, well, what do I really value? And then just try and focus on a small handful of things that I can control and that are my litmus tests for things are okay. And so I was like, can I be with my kids? Can I drive my car? Can I surf? And it's like, if I can do those three things, I'm like, hey, it ain't that bad, you know? And so I have horrendous days, but I don't let it get to me. I can't. And I just remind myself of basically those three things. Like, did you get to see your kids? Did you get to drive a car? Did you surf? Fuck, mate, you're doing okay. Which then means everything else is exponentially easier, right? So yeah, I do breath work every day. I stretch every day. I try and get in the water every single day if I can. The water is my like honestly, I'm more comfortable in water than I am on land by far.
When you're training sharks and stuff, are you in the water with them?
Rarely, yeah. No, I mean,
doing
I
it
wish.
from land.
Yeah, well, I'm usually guiding other people who are doing the stuff in the water, whether they've got their hands in the water or there's divers in the water, or whether they're planning to put divers in the water. I'm now the orchestra, you know. The person waving the wand and saying, yeah, you should go here, you should go there. We draw it all up on a whiteboard. And
Did you say you wish you were in the water with it?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Really?
Oh man, I keep. Like there's so many days where I work in these facilities and they go, just come back tomorrow and just jump in the tank all day. And I mean, one of the zoos I worked at, my very, very first day, I don't know what time of year it was cold, but I got in the water with some seals or something. And I said to this old dude who still works there, it was a little bit bitter, and I was like, fuck, I'm going to do this every day. And he goes, trust me, mate, after a couple of years, you'll be so over this. I worked there, pretty much full time for 12 years. And on my last day, I was still in the water. On my very last day, I was like, I never got over it.
We've two things that's just I want to ask from that.
Yeah.
If you're in the water and it's cold and you're shivering,
yeah,
and you're just cold, could an animal sense that as you're scared or something, and that would change their behaviour?
I don't think so. It would certainly, all those muscle contractions that happen would certainly be interesting to a shark for sure. Mm-hmm. But I think it's very just shivering compared to frantic movement, elevated heart rate. The endocrine system just spitting out all sorts of crazy shit. I think it's quite distinct and quite different. And I mean, the amount of people I've seen in scenarios who from the outside look normal and who I've known for a fact are shitting themselves, who have had animals target them, is undeniable. It's
the animal knows.
Fucking 100%.
Can you fake the confidence?
To a degree, right? So there's certain things you can do, like we would do, in cognitive behavior therapy or something like that, where you can do grounding exercises that'll lower all of that for sure. And you can do like an outside-in approach where you go, right, stomp my feet, ground myself, shake my hands out, take a few deep breaths, grab something, feel it, remind myself that I'm on planet Earth, and ask someone a question, start a dialogue, and then suddenly all that starts dialing down. And I think conversation, you see a lot of really people that are amazing with, say, reptiles in particular, mm-hmm. which cracks me up because they'll be handling snakes who can't hear, but these gurus in their field will still talk to the snake. You're all right, darling, that's it. They'll scoop an animal up beautifully that's, a black mamba that's gotten into someone's house, and they'll be guiding it out and talking to it the whole way. And, on the outset, you might go, that's stupid, the snakes can't hear. But by talking, humans...
The energy they're reflecting on it.
Exactly, right? You talk, your face softens, you all those little subtleties that come with our language. So, when I'm teaching people to, do more advanced stuff with their animals, I always say, you got to have a sharp marker word or marker sound. That means you're finished or you're going to get rewarded or something like that, right? So it might be a clicker or the word yes or good or something. That's got to be sharp and clear, and that means your favorite reward is on its way. But then after that, I want you to do something speak from the soul. Like, so it'd be like, yes, oh, you are so clever. That was awesome. And the animal sees you go, oh, like it wasn't just like yes and one bit of food is nice, but yes, and you
You
go,
got to keep that next part rolling.
that's awesome, man. I'm proud of you. The animal goes, oh, you, okay, yeah, I get it. You know, they feel that other layer. So there's a fine line between training like super clear and consistent and robotic and actually then dipping into a bit more of that sort of human emotion, which helps us soften up, which I know conveys our intentions a lot more.
Talking about faking the confidence, I just want to ask this question because I'm curious now to know if I've done the right thing or not. Me and my girlfriend, we're in Albania. We hiked up this mountain and we're walking back down and we kind of come through the back of someone's property.
Yeah.
But it was like along like a dirt road and these two dogs, I'm just going to say they had German Shepherd in them. They look like crossbreeds.
Yeah.
Massive dogs, but just come charging. And it was like they're clearly protecting the house and like it's all good, but like fucking scary moment. Like huge dogs running. Yeah. She's panicked. I've kind of grabbed her and put her behind me and I've just like tried, because I felt if I turned and ran, they were going to just bite me. That's what I felt. So I just stood and I was like, not growling, but I was like yelling and barking like back at them and just stood there and like their lips were up, their teeth, and we stood toe to toe and I was like fucking shitting it, but I just, in a second it kind of disappeared and I felt like I was in this energy with them and we just slowly kept moving back until like they got to a point where I was like, they're not going past here. It's not in their like they won't leave their land anymore. Sure. I'm just making all this up in my head in the moment. Like this is all happening instantly.
Yeah, for sure.
Is that right?
So, I mean, you got out of there, right? Without a bite.
So
first things first, right? In that moment, there is so many instances where you have to trust that gut, right? And there's heaps of times where the general rule would be stay calm, put something between yourself and the dog, right? But if you interrupt their behavior with something big enough and scary enough and convincing enough, fucking oath you'll shut that shit down. So the one-size-fits-all approach isn't right, because if you did that approach to, say, a professionally trained protection dog, guarantee that dog's going to go, this is even more exciting for a bite.
Yeah, right.
But say what you're describing, I'm almost going to guarantee was a Maremma or a Guardian livestock dog, an Anatolian type shepherd, Turkish Kangal type thing, right? Where their job is to just keep intruders, wild dogs and stuff away. They shouldn't really want to get into the tangle. So if you're basically saying, I see you, I get you, fucking back off, I'm moving away slowly, that can be enough for them to just go, all right, we're not going to take him down, but we're going to still tell him, hey, move on. And you're going, I'll move on in my own time. That's what you're conveying back to them. You're making yourself big. That's okay. That's totally fine. There is nothing that would say that's the wrong thing to do. The only absolute wrong thing to do is turn and run.
I felt that first.
Yeah, which is amazing, mate. And that's a really good survival instinct in you to go, like face the thing. In the dream, when you see the scary monster, face the monster. When you see the scary dog, face the scary dog. Don't turn. Same as a shark. You see the shark, face the shark. That's the first thing you got to do in all those things, in a metaphorical and a very physical sense. You've got to face it. You got to and that's I think kind of been one of the things that I've had in me since a kid is like, if I thought there was a monster under the bed, I was like, fuck that monster. I'm going down there and having a look, and that's what you did. You looked those dogs in the eyes. You turned and bounced, I guarantee you're getting nailed on the calf or hamstring. 100%, mate. Yeah. And a lot of those style of dogs will want to give you a nip as you're heading out the door, whereas if you maintain that eye contact and you go, mate, I see you, I'm backing out of here. But if you had started swinging legs and punches, that's when you're probably going to get into a scrap. But you make yourself big and you make a lot of noise and say, I'm not going to be toyed with.
There was times where I thought it just kept happening too.
Yeah.
I was like, this I'm going rah rah and scaring back at them.
Yeah.
And they were like kind of coming closer, and it was like, oh fuck,
it's
like
worse
this tension.
If they circle you and stuff, and you get one big one.
They were both just like that. But it was like, when Raffers was guarding your wallet, and he's like, they weren't down like that, they were standing up, but their teeth and everything, I was just like, fucking hell. it would hurt getting bit by one of them.
You'd be in hospital.
I remember one night we were it was Anzac Day, and these kids robbed. I don't know if they're kids or not, but these blokes robbed a pub near out at Edgeworth.
Yeah,
and they've gone on this massive chase. Anyways, I'm like up and editing on the computer, and I've heard like the sirens going through Warners Bay and going down one street. You'd hear it disappear, come back the other, and I'm just like, what the fuck's going on? Anyways, like where we live, there's one road that runs parallel to like up our street, and I heard it go up there, and I was like, fuck, they're just here. He's turned up our street, and I've like heard these cars go straight up the back. It's a cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
And then like 4 cops just like lights on, sirens just went vroom, 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 vroom. And we're only like 3 houses from the end. I'm like, where are they going to go? So I've ran down into the front yard thinking, this is going to be fucking great. I'm going to watch them get out of the car and run down. Anyway, it's a second pass. Dad's going, what's going on? I'm like, they haven't come back down yet. And we heard a noise out the back, and we got like a big paddock reserve, bush, a mountain, like they're at the back. So we've run out the back and we're watching them, and they're all laying in this real long grass, and they got a German Shepherd, the cops.
Oh, right, yeah.
And they're walking around, and the cops going, get him, boy, and the dog's fucking like looking for reefer. It was like running around with the scent. Boom, and you just hear this guy squealing.
Nah, it's bad.
And the cops going, into him.
Yeah.
And he's going, rrr, rrr, and it was just, it felt like to me it turned into a training like it's like we can have like a free training live thing. And he's gone, he's pulled the dog off after letting him rip in for a bit, and I don't even know if it happened or not, but he goes, don't kick my dog, and goes, into him, boy, and the dog's back on, and the guy was fucking squealing, and I'm like, I'm looking at Dad going, he's got fucking holes in his legs. One of the cops ran over and went, what are you guys doing? In your house, they're armed. They could have been armed, but I think it was just because like we were watching what was going on.
Yeah, man, I've like I won't say what agencies or what countries, but that sort of shit, man, that does go down. Yeah, and I mean it's messy business, right? And then they're in, like, those guys are in, the cops, they're in the heat of the battle, you know, and they're whether the dog gets kicked or not,
whether they do have a gun or not,
all that sort of stuff. It's it's scary business. But I tell you what, man, like if I was ever in a situation where they're like, get out, or the canines coming, like I am out of there, mate, because you can't, once that dog's told to go, like there's no, I'm sorry, officer, like you are getting chewed up. Your life has changed forever. There's going to be tendons, bones, you name it.
Flesh just get fucked up. Oh.
Mate, it's just, man, I've been sent, like, as you can imagine, I get sent some sick videos and like scenarios. Like there was one I saw out of, it was out of the States, and the guy, whatever happened, he ran into a room, and as I was sending the dog in, and he tripped backwards and like landed like leaning up against a bed, and the dog was just committed to like biting at a certain level and just went whack, and just like ragdolled his face. You're just going, oh my God! Like,
have you seen that monkey that bit someone in Indonesia? And it just like, it's this little one, and it goes like that, and just takes all his down to the skull. All the hair just gets peeled back, just like a banana. It was like, you look at the monkey and it just looks so effortless. I couldn't even believe it done it, eh?
Well, I mean, that's the thing with all animals. Like our bite force and our bite power is nothing by comparison. The one of the very first bites I got from a sea lion was on the foot, wearing steel cap boots, and the only thing that went through my mind when it happened was someone smashed my foot with a sledgehammer. Like I actually, that was the thought, even though there was a seal in front of me, but I was like, oh, my foot's been smashed by a sledgehammer. That was the thing that went through my brain, even though I saw the animal down there, because it was just so, the pain was so disproportionate that I was just going, this doesn't make fucking sense, and no way that. And he wasn't he was 100 kilos, so big enough, but not giant. But yeah, it's across the whole. You get bitten by a rabbit hard enough, it fucking hurts.
Yeah.
Let alone a monkey with
little ants.
Yeah, let alone a monkey with all the little ants. Let alone a monkey with big canines.
Yeah. Do you want to wrap it there?
Yeah, I think it's mate, we've done an hour and 7 minutes.
Yeah, it's gone quick. I could just keep chatting all night. But
nah, it's been sick.
if anyone's listening and they want to look you up or get you to train their animals, do you want to just give yourself a plug?
At Tate Animals is the socials, or www.tateanimals.com. Probably due for a little update, but we zoos, aquariums, government agencies, smaller agencies. It's 90% at the moment would be with detection dogs, and then the other 10%, zoos and aquariums and research projects and stuff like that. But awesome team around me. Got contacts all around the world that if I'm not necessarily the person to help you, I can usually point you in the direction of someone that can.
Awesome. Thanks heaps, bro.
Yeah, thank you, bro.
Thank you. That was great.